Hey guys, for today's video I will cover Tribbie's kit and everything else you need to reach your full potential. I'll cover what relics and ornaments to use, what cones to use, and what teams, while also providing timestamps to these sections in the video. Starting off with her kit, her skill increases all allies' all-type rest penetration by 24% for 3 turns by giving herself the luminosity effect. Her ultimate activates a zone for 2 turns, whose duration decreases every time it's her turn, and deals damage equal to 30% of Tribbie's max HP to all enemies. It also states that it increases enemy targets' damage taken by 30%, and after an ally target attacks, for every 1 target hit, it deals 1 instance of damage equal to 12% of Tribbie's max HP to the target that has the highest HP among the hit targets. For her talents, after an ally uses an ultimate, Tribbie launches a follow-up attack, dealing damage equal to 18% of Tribbie's max HP to all enemies. This effect can only be triggered up to 1 time per character and resets this trigger counts for other ally characters once Tribbie uses her ultimate. Her first trace increases the damage though by Tribbie's follow-up attacks by 72%, stacking up to 3 times and lasting for 3 turns. Her second trace increases Tribbie's max HP by an amount equal to 9% of the sum of all ally characters' max HP while her zone is active. Her third trace regenerates 30 energy at the start of the battle and 1.5 energy for every enemy hit when an ally attacks. For her relics, she's gonna want relics that increase her max HP, crit stats, energy, or speed. Because of this, she's gonna want the Poet of Morning Collapse set because it increases her damage substantially, allowing her to get 32% crit rate and 10% quantum damage. For an alternative, the Longevous Disciple set is pretty good since it increases her max HP, but it gives her a conditional and limited 16% crit rate buff, which is only half of the Poet of Morning Collapse set. For an alternative playstyle, you can also run the Eagle of Twilight line set if you would rather advance her forward so that she could have better ultimate uptime while sacrificing her personal damage. For planner sets, the Bone Collection is good because it increases her max HP and crit damage, which helps to even out the crit ratio when combined with the Poet of Morning Collapse set. And for a subpar alternative, the Inert Salsoto set is also good since it increases her follow-up attack damage, but it doesn't increase her coordinated attacks, which is where a big portion of her DPS comes from. For an alternative playstyle, the Sprightly Planner set is going to be her best since it gives her enough energy and advances her forward by 40% at the beginning of battle, which allows her to set up her ultimate before your other characters attack. For her stats, you're going to want to aim for 4000 to 6000 HP, 1100 to 1250 defense, 80 to 90% crit rate while she's in battle, 160% to 180% crit damage, 100 or 124% energy recharge, and the base or 125 speed. For her chest, she's going to want crit damage or crit rate. For her feet, she's going to want HP percentage unless you're running the Eagle set, in which case you're going to want speed boots to reach 125 speed. For her planner sphere, she's going to want HP percentage, and for her rope, she's going to want the energy regen. Keep in mind that your Tribbie should have a balance between her first and number 2 priority, those being her ultimate uptime and her personal damage. So if you find yourself having to choose between speed and or energy recharge versus HP and or crit stats, you should always prioritize the speed and or the energy recharge so that you can have better ultimate uptime, which again is her number 1 priority. For her Lightcones, her signature Lightcone is going to be her best since it gives her a massive boost to her personal damage by giving her a ton of crit damage and a massive boost to her ultimate uptime by providing her with an abundance amount of energy. For an alternative, the Dance 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 Lightcone would be good because it advances all allies forward by 24% when she uses her ultimate, which will make this Lightcone really good at increasing ultimate uptime. Thing is, this Lightcone doesn't have any energy recharge, which makes it so that her relics and planners are going to have to make up for it by sacrificing her personal damage, aka she's gonna want an energy recharge rope instead of an HP percentage one. Another alternative, but a bit of an odd Lightcone, would be the Memories of the Past Lightcone, since although the break effect boost doesn't really matter to her, the energy it provides could come in handy in case you are in need of it. For her teams, Tribbie is one of the most universal supports in the game, being able to work really well on pretty much any team, but where she shines the most is on HP scaling teams. This is because HP scalers are built with a ton of HP, which gives Tribbie a huge damage boost when her ultimate is up. Because of this, Tribbie's best teammates consist of Castris, Medei, Blade, Jingliu, Doherda, and for a sustainer, Hyacinth. Castris synergizes with Tribbie more so than other HP scalers because her ultimate recharge is dependent on how much HP your teammates have, and since Tribbie is built with a ton of HP and will receive a ton of HP through Castris HP, Tribbie's massive HP amounts is going to help Castris use her ultimate faster and will help Tribbie do more damage. When it comes to other HP scalers like Blade or Medei, she doesn't have that much synergy, so she'd be a good pair of them simply because they have a lot of HP. Jing Liu is a similar case, but Tribbie's vulnerability and all-type rest penetrations do have a bit more synergy with her, since Jing Liu's kit is filled with crit stats, which would get way too saturated and diluted if she were to be paired up with someone like Sunday rather than Tribbie. For the Herda, she too would make more use of Tribbie's damage amplifying debuffs rather than buffs, since the damage amplifying buffs would get far more diluted. Not only that, but Tribbie's follow-up attacks help Herda regenerate more energy. Hyacinth is going to be her best in slot sustainer, since she'll increase not only Tribbie's max HP, but the max HP of everyone else on the team as well, which will further increase Tribbie's max HP, allowing her to do more damage by a substantial amount. For her Eidolons, her E1 states that while the zone lasts and after an ally targets attacks enemies, additionally deals true damage equal to 24% of the total damage of this attack to targets, which is extremely good because it increases the damage done to an enemy from 24% to 120%, which depends on how many enemies are attacked. Not to mention, this is only her E1. Her E2 states that the additional damage dealt by the zone increases to 120% of the original damage, and that when the zone deals additional damage, further deals 1 instance of additional damage, which is a really good buff to her personal damage. Her E4 states that while Numinosity lasts, the damage dealt by all allies ignores 18% of the target's defense, which is insane since ignoring defense is a huge damage amplifying effect when stacked. Her E6 states that after Tribbie uses her ultimate, she launches her talent's follow-up attack against all enemies, and that the damage dealt by her talent's follow-up attack increases by 729%, which increases her damage output by a ton. Not only that, but it reduces the strain of balancing between ultimate uptime and personal damage, since using her ultimate now deals a ton of damage as well. So when it comes to her Eidolons, I think that her E1 is an insane vertical investment, especially for pure fiction. Her E2 is pretty decent since it increases her personal damage by a nice amount, but I wouldn't say that it's worth it. For her E4, defense shred is really useful, but it isn't enough to make up for the fact that this is her E4. Not to mention that chances are if you're going to use Tribbie, you're also not going to use Silverwolf or Pella, meaning that the defense shred won't be able to stack, so I can't really recommend this either. For her E6, it increases her personal damage substantially, but it's still considered sub DPS damage relative to other C6 main DPS. Not only that, but it requires a ton of time and money, which I also wouldn't recommend investing into. In conclusion, the way you're going to want to play Tribbie is by maximizing her ultimate uptime and investing into her personal damage. You can do this with 2 different playstyles. First, you can prioritize her personal damage but not her ultimate uptime by not putting a lot of investments into speed, energy, or advance forward. Or you can prioritize her ultimate uptime by building her with speed, energy, and advance forward so that she can use her ultimate before any of your allies attack. By doing this, her debuffs and buffs will be present from the start of the battle, and you also won't have to worry about ultimate uptime because of how consistent her ultimate usage will be. But you'll have to sacrifice a lot of her personal damage. You can try to reach a balance between these 2 playstyles by sacrificing speed for personal damage, aka HP boots over speed boots, sacrificing personal damage for energy, aka a max HP rope over an energy regen rope, etc. Keep in mind that in her best teams, aka HP scaling teams, she's gonna have a lot of personal DPS because of her second trace that lets her increase her max HP by 9% of all allies HP, so prioritizing her personal damage when building her rather than her ultimate uptime would be a bit extraneous, especially since her ultimate uptime is meant to be her #1 priority as a support.